I have a lot of expertise painting in oils, but digital painting is an area that I have no experience in whatsoever. I've always been really intrigued by the idea of it because I would imagine that there are some things that are similar in digital painting and oil painting, but to me, digital painting is this big mystery that I know nothing about. What are the advantages of working with digital painting?
Well, I really like painting digitally when I want something to be more conveniently done. For instance, when I paint traditionally, I have to buy all the materials, buy paints, buy brushes, buy canvases. I have to set up, I paint, and then I have to clean up afterwards. It just takes up a lot of my time, and sometimes I just don't have that time. Therefore, when I have a tablet and a program, I can just begin painting. No setup required, no cleanup required. It
Jeez, that sounds awesome.
saves so much time.
But also money, I would say, too, because once you have the tablet, you've got your computer, you've got your software, it's not like you're going to run out of a computer. I mean, yeah, you got to buy a new computer every now and then. That's actually a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it lasts a long time. And what's more is that you can use digital mediums not only for final paintings, but as plans for your traditional paintings. For traditional paintings, for references, you have to really prepare and really sketch it out before going into your final painting. But when I do digital paintings, if I ever need something, if the need ever pops up, I just add it really quick into the digital file. And it's not a problem because of the different layers. I won't destroy the layer beneath it, unlike oil paintings where you kind of have to go into your final image. Therefore, the planning process is really expedited. It's very, very fast.
You're going to do a digital illustration with multiple references, some from life, some from photos, some from images off of Google image search. How did you come up with the idea for this illustration just to begin with?
I first began with a mishmash of ideas. For instance, I knew Ed would be the model, and previously I had wanted to do a digital version of a drawing I had already done of a girl shaving flowers off of her legs. So I started off with drawing Ed with some flowers, with the flower salad specifically. And I thought, oh, it'd be cool if Ed were a caterpillar eating the flower salad. But then I thought, oh, that's so Alice in Wonderland-esque, you know?
It's a little bit cliche.
Yeah, I added Ed with the flower salad with just caterpillars on him. And I thought, wait, maybe he would be preparing the flower salad. And that escalated to Ed in the kitchen preparing flower food for the caterpillars. Here he is in the kitchen pulling out a flower pie from the oven. Here he is just preparing the food in the sink, washing it. And there's also the cutting board with cut flowers and the pot boiling with flowers in it.
You're really moving from one image to the next, that the last image inspires the next one, because I can see the progression. How do you actually start this illustration? Because it sounds like a very complicated image, and I just feel like I have no idea where to begin.
Well, usually I do thumbnails, traditionally or digitally, it doesn't really matter, so long as I just get down my ideas and figure out generally what sort of idea I want to go for. And then I make a big sketch digitally, usually for my digital pieces. And then from there, I take reference shots according to what I kind of need according to the sketch. Today, I'll be using Photoshop Creative Cloud. I know this is a software that not a lot of people can afford, but there are plenty of cheap or even free options out there. For example, GIMP or Paint Tool SAI, S-A-I. Now that I have Photoshop opened, I'm going to go File, New. And here there are a bunch of files already provided. You can have your file to be any of these sizes. Personally, I like to go into the resolution bar and type in 300. That makes it 300 dpi, dots per inch, or pixels per inch. Essentially, this makes it more high quality. And when you print in different sizes, it's more ensured that this image will stay high quality.
Plus, you never know when you might want to actually print this out at a big size. It doesn't hurt you to make it bigger. Why are you picking inches as opposed to pixels?
I'm more used to this personally, but also I know that when I print it out at a certain size, I just know inches in real life rather than pixels in real life.
Sure.
For now, I'll just go with this, 3.6 and 6.4. It really doesn't matter that much how big you want it to be. Of course, later on, if I want to print it maybe like printer paper size, I better make the canvas big enough to accommodate that. So 9 by 12 inches. What also happens is that the more you draw, you realize you need more space. So you can just crop or expand the canvas however you want.
Oh, I wish I could do that with oil painting. Boy, yeah. That would be nice.
I usually like to have my layers tab open. For now, I'm going to create a new layer. And then I'll just sketch with the brush tool.
Now, are you sketching a thumbnail or are you actually doing the illustration right now?
I'm actually doing the illustration.
Oh, you are? Okay.
You go to the brush tool right here, you right click, this appears, you can adjust the size or the hardness. Basically, when it's 0 hardness, it's very soft.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that soft edge?
Yeah.
Now, when it's a hard edge, it will look like this.
The stylus, it depends on how hard you push?
Yes.
Is that how you're getting the different widths of the brushstrokes?
Some useful keyboard controls include brush, B, which is what I'm on right now, or Z, zoom. Right now it's on the magnifying glass, and I will right click and click fit on screen. If I clicked 100%, it will zoom in until it's like 100%
Sure.
view of the canvas. But for now, I just click fit on screen so I see the whole thing. Now we're on the brush tool. I usually like to use gray for some reason. I just don't like using black, hard black for my sketch.
I feel like black is too assertive. Like it makes you not want to change it as much.
Yeah.
There's something about gray that makes it feel a lot more flexible.
Yeah.
You're starting with the linear perspective in the kitchen.
Yeah. Just blocking it in real fast so I know.
Why don't you shoot the reference photos first and then do the sketch based on the reference photos? Like, to me, this seems like the opposite of what you should be doing.
Usually I do this to cut on time because most times I have a solid idea of what exactly I need to paint. I just sketch it out and I know what exactly to shoot.
Oh, so this is more efficient then?
This is quite fast. So just based on the sketch, I realized I need to take a picture of an oven.
You're taking mental notes on what you want to shoot reference photos of as you're doing the sketch.
Another useful thing I use is E eraser. I'm going to change the size a little bit.
So you're already editing as you go along.
Yeah, if I see any glaring mistakes, I will edit.
Well, I think in a sketch, you don't have to be so picky about how things are perfectly positioned. I'm sort of amazed at the speed with which you're drawing. Is that something that most people can do right away? I feel like I would do this at half the pace if I was doing it.
Personally, I know this is not going to be the final. And also, I'm not wasting materials.
That's true. I never thought about it that way.
Well, I need a kitchen, obviously. I need to have photos of a stove, an oven. I really wanted a sink, cutting board with flowers, and I know he's going to have a knife. Something I definitely want are kitchen details, like a bowl of fruit.
Why do you think these embellishments matter?
To make the space more believable. I even thought in my mind that he would be married to a butterfly.
Oh, jeez.
And I would include a portrait, maybe like here, with the butterfly and Ed all like happy.
Well, see, you seem to be just coming up with stuff just on the fly.
Yeah.
Is that something that you think is easier to do digitally as opposed to, say, if you were stretching a canvas and painting with actual oil paints?
Digitally, I have no consequences. I can do whatever I want with no repercussions. For instance, I can make a new layer and say, wow, I want the butterfly in the kitchen right now.
Yeah.
The butterfly like right there.
Right.
Right there.
That's on a different layer?
Yeah, it's on a different layer. And then I think, oh, it doesn't look so good. It's okay. I can just make the
Oh, that's beautiful.
Or delete it altogether. Another useful tool is Control-Z or Command-Z if you're on Macs. It just makes the previous stroke go away. What's even more useful is Control-Alt-Z, which makes further strokes go away.
Oh, wow, that is so fun. So you get to actually watch the drawing go in reverse.
But what's even better about Control-Alt-Z is after you're done and you realize, oh no, I've gone too far back, you can hit Control-Z and it just undoes all the Control-Alt-Zs.
The thing about reference photos that's important is to show different points of view. So we see you doing bird's eye view right now. You did eye level before. You could try a few that are from below because that's the advantage of staging your own reference photo. Because you're not looking for one reference photo, you're looking for several that you could possibly stitch together, right? You don't want to have to set everything up again, so it never hurts to shoot many, many more photos. So you're really thinking about the lighting as you're shooting these photos?
Yeah.
It always helps to shoot too much. You can always delete. So you think for reference photos, the motion should be as natural as possible. I think it's good not to ask someone to pose, but just to say, how would you actually do it? Because otherwise it starts to look really artificial.
The reason I think it's better from below is that I see all three elements very clearly, the flowers, the knife, and also Ed's face. And from above, it's very hard to get that because sometimes in some angles you can't see the knife, other times you can't quite see the flowers.
Are you finding that once you have things set up, you're changing your mind at all about possible compositions?
Yeah, all the time.
What's going through your head as you're actually working with Ed in the space?
Feel like that I need to have a picture from the bottom view because I feel like it's just a more dynamic composition.
And that's something you didn't think about earlier in the sketch.
Earlier I thought what would be dynamic would be just like the linear perspective of the whole kitchen, but maybe I want a more intimate drawing after all. We'll see after the photos are taken. I also make sure to take close-ups of everything, for instance the hands or the flowers, because later on I won't get that chance. And maybe the photos I took before were too blurry and I couldn't see the detail.
You may not use 99% of these photos, but this is giving you options, and that's the most important thing when shooting reference photos. I have a lot of students, they shoot one photo and that's it, and I just think that that's a big mistake. I think you have to shoot as many as possible. What's good about that shot?
I can see the one hand's actually gripping the tip of the knife as he cuts.
So you're getting a different position than you had before because of the way he's holding the knife?
Yeah.
If you decide to develop this into a series of illustrations, you have that option.
My vision had a strainer in it.
No, but I think that's important for those props to be part of it. It makes it so much more real. You're thinking about a very complete narrative. You're not just thinking about that one moment in time. You're actually thinking about, well, if Ed did go and get flowers, he'd go outside, they'd be full of dirt, he'd bring them in. And so I think the thing that's important to say is that the illustration isn't just one thing. It's a whole arc of a story that you're trying to convey.
I'm getting more excited now that I see all the opportunities that we do have. Really being in this space makes me realize all the things that we could be doing that I want to do that I didn't realize before when I was just sitting on my couch sketching.
Which is odd because you would think that just sketching out of your head would give you more ideas, but you're saying actually being in the space gives you more ideas. And how do you know we're done? Because it seemed like for a while you were really on a roll and you wanted to shoot more, and now you're saying, oh, that's it, I'm finished.
I can't think of anything more to shoot, honestly. We could just keep on doing it, but eventually when we start repeating things that we've already done, that's kind of a sign that we need to stop and maybe think about the actual drawing rather than get too focused on taking too many reference shots. But of course, as I said before, there's never such a thing as too many reference shots.
The other thing is there's the option, if you start the digital painting and realize, oh shoot, I need a closer up image of something, you can always go back and shoot again.
That's true.
It's not like this is the last time you can shoot reference photos, so there's that flexibility.
Right. Actually, what I had planned on doing was start the image, and the more I'm drawing, the more I realize that there are some certain things I need. I'll just go back and shoot more reference photos. It doesn't take up that much time. It doesn't take up that much energy.
What are you looking for when you go through the reference photos?
First, I look for photos to delete. Honestly, sometimes I take repeats and I really don't need that. If photos are of the same thing but at a different angle, I usually keep them.
But isn't that picture a problem because of the lighting being all blacked out?
Some photos you can find details of the shirt that you can use, for instance, in this image. If I were to draw Ed like this, maybe I would draw him in that pose. And I can't quite see the details of the shirt, so I would just use details from another photo and just draw those in. But what I really like about this photo is just the pose. I feel like it's very clear. I would also delete photos where I think I really don't think I would use them. For instance, these hands are kind of at an awkward position. I feel like they aren't very visibly hands or in a very good, graceful movement. I might delete that too. Also, you can't see the flowers that well.
You're not looking for one photo. You're looking for several photos. So do you go through multiple rounds of deleting?
I think I do a first pass, and then I choose my favorites, and then put them into a document so I can see them all together, and then I start drawing. If I need more references, I just go back into the big pool of photos I still have on hand.
How do you know it's worth doing another shoot?
It's never not useless. I would always try to shoot my photos. But if I really can't find a photo in real life, for instance, I can't take a picture of an elephant right now.
Right. That's not going to happen.
So if it's something like that, I will definitely go into Google. But there really is no excuse. It's very simple to shoot a reference photo.
Well, especially when it's a kitchen and a person. The whole advantage of reference photos is you just have complete control. You would never be able to find an image like this on Google. There's just no chance. So many of these reference photos aren't anything like what you sketched. What's the point of having all these if they're not even close to your sketch?
I might change my sketch according to how successful my reference photos are, honestly, because many things can change a concept.
But you don't mind almost throwing out that first sketch and starting from scratch after doing the reference photos?
Not at all. Did you see how fast the first sketch
That's
went?
true. You did that in like 2 minutes. The idea of having to scrap something and then start again can be really frustrating, but you're saying it's not a big deal for you?
I feel like once you've drawn something, you have that ability, you can do it again. But I don't feel so bad about throwing it out because this took like 2 minutes.
Right.
And I'm sure I can do it again.
I mean, I think that's a good argument for not spending tons of time on that first sketch. You've got all your reference photos now. What do you do at this point?
I take all these photos and put them into one Photoshop document so I have easy access. Take this document, duplicate the layer into one image. Oh my god, there's so many. To the very top one, 6518. How about that? So you see, everything I duplicated was on separate layers. These images are quite big. See how really huge they are?
High res.
Therefore, I go to image size, and then I go into inches. Hit maybe like 20 or 10. Resize them all. And then I just make the whole canvas size bigger with the crop tool. I just like organize
that's what
it.
you're doing.
These are all the waiter photos, for instance, so I would probably group them all together for easy handling.
So you're just putting all the images into one image so
Yes.
you can see them simultaneously.
Yes.
So the advantage here is that you can just quickly look at every image all at once.
Right.
Do you find having all the images in one document helps you see connections better?
There are a lot of photos of just Ed moving around. I feel like I should have taken more photos of the flowers or the water dripping. This mind map sort of helps me see what I have been missing out and what I've been paying too much attention to.
How did you come up with this procedure? Because this is not how I go through reference photos. I just have them and I just preview. I would never think to put them on one image.
I think the worst part of having them on preview is that you have to flip through a bunch of reference photos to get to the one you're actually searching for. Whereas if I put them all into one image, group them in according to certain categories, it's so much easier to find your way around. I'm selecting all the layers with the big pictures. Press Shift, click all the way here, and you've selected all these layers. With the Move tool, and the keyboard shortcut is V, hold Shift and then resize. The reason why you want to hold Shift is because if you do not, they will warp like this when you resize them. Hold Shift, resize, hit Enter, and then it should eventually resize all those photos. Press your hand tool, and then just move around to see your different references. See, these images are not so big, but really I just need a general sense of the reference. Maybe just a figure, maybe just the way he's standing. If I need more details, I can just go back into my folder and find the
original resolution. Yeah. Got it. You organize them by subject?
Right. So in this one he's cutting, therefore I will arrange all of them by cutting.
It is fun to see the images lined up together, isn't it?
Yeah. Since everything's on one document, you can no longer select individual parts. It's either you select the whole thing or select parts of this image. So it's the lasso tool. You just hit L on the keyboard or you click that and you circle on anything you want to move. Since this is the flattened image, that means the white has also been flattened with it. Therefore, when I select this piece, that means the white has also been selected. If I go over, see, you can see that the white has been selected. And the way to escape from the lasso tool, your selection, is to hit Control D. Another tool is the rectangular marquee tool, or really any shape marquee tool. You can see there's elliptical, single row, single column, but we're going to use a rectangular one. I've selected the rectangular marquee tool. I'm selecting this part of the image, hit V, which is the move tool, and just move that selection over here.
Oh, so that basically does the same thing as the lasso tool.
Right, but only in a rectangular shape.
Sure.
Once in a while, you might accidentally hit this weird center thing. Basically, it's telling you it's the center of anything if you want to manipulate this. For instance, if I wanted to rotate it, it would rotate around the dot.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I always wondered what that dot was. Now I know.
It's easy to escape from that. Just hit Enter or click this check. And you can see it's back to normal. Now you have your little reference sheet. Going back to the sketch, I realized this is probably not the direction I want to go in anymore.
It's a little different. So this is not the final illustration. You're doing another sketch.
Correct. Maybe I want the same kitchen, but just multiple caterpillars.
Wait, Ed is a caterpillar?
Ed is now a caterpillar.
Oh!
Based on the reference photos that we took previously, we believe that he would be better as a caterpillar. I think what I want now is a bird's eye view of the kitchen, just to see how many things are going on. That good old 3-point perspective.
Oh, I like that point of view.
Yeah. I noticed something hanging in your kitchen, which was like a pizza paddle or something
A
like that.
peel?
Was that what
It's called a pizza peel.
I've never known the word for that.
Well, now you know. Maybe you should make the top of the stove less big, because doesn't that totally cover where Ed was chopping?
That's true.
I mean, I think it's important when you're doing a sketch to be really flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Just be willing to wipe out huge areas and start again.
You know what I want?
What?
Little larva children.
That's the best! Oh my god! This is turning into an epic novel. Do you feel like you wouldn't be this free if this was an oil painting?
Definitely not. For some reason, I feel like digital is easier to get away with things and do it faster.
Don't you feel like the space on the lower right's a little bit empty?
Yeah.
Couldn't you flip the caterpillar that was chopping and put him over here in the lower right?
Ooh, yes, I could do that.
So they're chopping on that side. You just flip it 180.
Do you think caterpillars would have a pet or something? Like a dog?
Dog?
Like a dog roly-poly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, a roly-poly.
Roly-poly, like on a leash somewhere.
It just makes me think that digital is perfect for illustration when you have to be this free with your ideas. Because you're just making stuff up on the spot, aren't you?
Yeah. I don't want to include too many things also.
I already think you have a lot of things.
Right.
You should put a chrysalis in the upper left corner.
Oh my gosh.
That's perfect.
Oh my gosh. Multiple crystals?
Yes, have a whole row of them because they're hanging from the ceiling.
Oh my goodness.
That is awesome. I think that's perfect for that upper corner, because what else are you going to put there?
That's true.
A boring ceiling?
Should I put a butterfly in the background here? With a cane. Because it's old.
Are you going to do something with the floor tile? Like, are you going to do like checkerboard floor? Or is that too busy? Because that really helps emphasize the 3-point perspective.
You know what we could always do? Just do it, and then if it's too much, just get rid of it, yeah.
Do you find that you do that in your illustrations, that you overdo things, knowing that you can just take it out later?
Yeah, definitely for digital.
That reference photo session was really critical to this. This is 10 billion times better than what you started with, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so
it seems
too.
like by comparison, what you started with is so boring.
Yeah.
Are all the caterpillars the same type of caterpillar?
This one's gonna be a spiky one. Oh my gosh, what if what if they have like a punk son?
Yeah! Teenage caterpillar?
Yeah, here he has a black t-shirt on with like the skull or whatever.
Well, maybe you need to Google caterpillars, because I don't know off the top of my head what caterpillars look like.
I don't want any too outrageous caterpillars either, otherwise people won't recognize them as caterpillars.
That's true. I feel like you need to do the monarch. Like, that's such a quintessential butterfly.
The
yellow one.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to label this one that I'm going for sketch, and I'm going to add in another layer, put that layer underneath. This is going to be my color layer, so I'll name it color. I'm going to quickly turn the layer into multiply mode.
Mm-hmm.
Basically what this does is if I ever add color underneath, I'm going to color something in just to show. So right now the sketch is in multiply, which is sort of affecting how the colors merge together. For instance, the color is just a normal layer, just a layer of colors. Mm-hmm. But then since it's multiply, anything on top will just be darker in that shade, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
For instance, if I make this layer back to normal, you can see the gray does not change at all. And that really affects how I see things. So I'm just going to move it to multiply, and it just changes according to how the colors are.
It's so much easier to see.
Yeah. Press G, or you can click this paint bucket tool right here. And if you can't find it, it's because it's hiding behind gradient or 3D material drop tool. Just click and hold, and then click paint bucket tool, and then click. And then it'll cover everything with the color that you have.
Because you can just paint right over it.
Right. This is something I use a lot, which is the eyedropper tool. You just press I, and then you click somewhere, and then as you can see here, the color is selected.
That's a quick way to get the color back without having to find it again.
Right.
So you're not trying that hard to get the right color? Are you just going to go back in and readjust?
Right. I just want to know in general how I want things to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many tricks that you can do to tweak the colors into a way you want. For instance, I can tweak these colors all I want, but if I don't have any sense of color theory, then what am I tweaking it into?
Right.
Yeah. Now I want to clean up the line art a little bit. Some people have really pristine line art, but I'm not that kind of person.
But wait, are you gonna like eliminate the lines 100%?
Eventually the lines will dissipate.
So they'll be gone.
They will be gone
entirely. So what are you gonna do now? Are you gonna color over the lines, or do you just like remove that layer with the lines?
I'm going to color over the lines, but here's the thing. Without the lines right now, it's very hard to tell what's going on.
Yeah, it's sort of a mess.
So I'm actually going to merge the two, but before I merge them, I'm going
You're going to merge the layers.
Right.
Okay.
The two that I've selected here. But I'm actually going to duplicate them first because...
Is that like a backup?
Yeah, as a backup. And then I will merge this. So from now on, I'll be working on this layer. I'll make this disappear. These layers, and that layer as well. I'll just make them all disappear. And I'll be working on this layer from now on. I'm just...
Oh, so wait, this layer is the last two layers put together.
Right.
And this is the one you're going to get rid of the line work with.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Because who knows if I want to go back, I want to save my previous layers. I'm just taking full advantage of working digitally right now.
Yeah, I wish I could do that with painting.
Right?
That'd be awesome.
What I usually do is select colors that currently exist in the image right now. So I go to the eyedropper tool, which is the I button on the keyboard. It changed to an eyedropper, and I click somewhere, and as you can see, the color changed to be that.
Okay.
Then I click B, press B for brush, and I just draw again over that. And just now I just made the brush bigger.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And usually
that is so easy. It's like you don't have to remix the color.
Right.
Okay, now I want to paint digitally. Because do you know how much time I spend trying to replicate a color that I mixed 2 weeks ago? It's a lot of work.
I know.
And most of the time you can't get it exactly right. But I don't know, there's advantages to that too, having the color be slightly different.
Yeah, sometimes the colors can just give you surprises. You might mix something that ends up working really well and you didn't think it would. So as you can see, I'm just cleaning up some of the lines so I can see a little bit clearer. Like maybe I don't want this caterpillar to be so long. Maybe I want it a little shorter.
Oh, so sometimes you're coloring around the shape. Because I would assume that once you start coloring over the lines, all of your shapes are going to grow. Are those the larvae?
Yes.
Oh, they're so cute.
They have diapers on.
What, they have diapers?
This one has a diaper.
Oh, you just made the diaper big and bulgy. Do you ever adjust the colors at this stage, or do you just wait till later?
Adjusting colors is something I do at all stages.
Oh, so even now you might tweak the colors?
Yeah. Even in the finished, I might tweak the colors.
So the color tweaking never ends?
Never ends. Sometimes I realize during this process that things need to be changed, such as the perspective of this drawing. It's not very well done. I just did it very fast. What I could do is make another layer, Control-Shift-N or Command-Shift-N, and press OK. And with another brush or any tool of a different color, I'll make it like bright red. I can see if the perspective's okay.
But eventually you're not going to keep that red line. You're going to get rid of it.
Yeah, I will get rid of it. It's on a separate layer right now, so it doesn't affect my actual drawing.
Nice.
So here's a trick. Hold down Shift, draw somewhere, and draw another point. And a line will appear that's mostly straight.
That's awesome.
If you hold Shift and just draw a line, it will come out straight, no matter what.
That's so perfect.
Right, and it does it vertically too, but it cannot do diagonal.
Wait, so you hold Shift and then you push
just draw a line. Yeah.
Got it.
When people think digital, they think they can do things really fast, which is true, you can. But there are some things you still need to take a lot of time, and sometimes I still want to see it at the same time instead of just drawing and then looking and then drawing again. So I'm going to take this layer and make it a little bit see-through so I can still kind of see it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So it's there, but it's not too prominent.
Right. And then go back to my original painting and just keep painting. Just according to how the sketch is, for instance, like this. And you can still see the sketch, and the sketch isn't affected at all. It's just a painting. So what I'm going to do now is make a new layer. Control-Shift-N again. Press OK. Make this layer a multiply layer.
Which layer is a multiply layer?
It's the new one I made just now.
Oh, the new one is a multiply layer. Okay.
I'm actually going to label it shadow, so we know which layer is which.
So that helps keep track of what's what.
I'm going to choose a color. Yeah, this color actually works. It's like soft brown color, not straight black. Okay. Because what the multiply layer does is affect all the layers underneath it to be that darkness. So for instance, here's my brown spot, right? And as you can see, it affected all the layers underneath it. Oh. Here's a zoom up. And you know, this is very dark already, so it doesn't affect it that much. It affected all the other colors. Is that too dark for a shadow? It is too dark. So what we're going to do is go back to this layer and decrease the opacity a bit. Oh, so it looks more shadow-like. Just keep painting with the same color on the multiply layer. Wait, how did you pop up that window? You right-click
And that brings up that window?
Right.
Okay.
And this window, when you're on the brush setting, it will change the brush preferences. For instance, this is the size. I can make it smaller. So as you can see, it is smaller or bigger. And you see it's bigger. This is a hardness. And right now it's at a hard edge. So if you zoom up really close, you can see the edge is hard. If we decrease the hardness, you can see the edge is very blurry now. I prefer hard edge. That's just my preference. And I have a reason.
What's the reason?
It's because when you make the computer do all your soft edges for you, it looks like a computer did them. They're just too even and too perfect, which is why I like to blend it myself later.
So you can be more selective about where you blend?
Right.
Because otherwise it's just going to blend everywhere.
Right.
Got it.
And there's actually a function in Photoshop to just blur everything. And it's useful in some cases, but it really seems like a computer did it.
Yeah.
And I don't like that as much. It's just a personal preference.
Well, I think when things are too consistent and too similar, there's a robotic look to it. You want to feel that human touch in the mark.
But when you draw digitally, it will go a lot faster, but you still have to take the time to make sure it is the piece of work you want to create in the end. Like the blur tool would have made things so fast, but it just doesn't look that good. So I'm just thinking about how the shadow would affect this caterpillar if it's coming in through the window. I feel like all of this would be in shadow. Yeah, and then there would be shadow cast from this cabinet onto the caterpillar there. So all that would be in shadow as well.
But how do you know that? Like, I think some people would not be able to come up with that by themselves. How is it that you have that skill to be able to estimate the shadows?
I just really like light and shadow a lot, so I notice it a lot. And when it's very dramatic, it's really fun to work with. Whereas imagine if this piece just didn't have any shadow at all. I just would not be interested in doing this piece.
So lighting's really important for you.
Lighting is very important.
Do you understand lighting because you've drawn a lot from life? Or is it because you look at lighting and shadows just in real life?
I think it's because I've drawn a lot of shadows and light and shadows. If there's something interesting about a shadow, I tend to remember it. For instance, when something comes out of a window like this, and I think about what are some big shapes that are going to be in shadow.
Okay.
And to me, I think this would actually be a big space that would be in shadow.
Sure.
Because, you know, the light is coming out, hitting the cabinet, and it will cast a shadow, of course.
So you're working intuitively based on past experience with light and shadow.
And then thinking about it a little bit more, this caterpillar would also cast a shadow. So there's that shadow the caterpillar is casting. And, you know, it doesn't have to be that realistic. It just has to be believable. So,
well, I think what makes lighting look believable is when it's consistent. Because what I see is a problem is people will have the light coming from all different directions. They'll have the shadow on this side and then on this side. And that's when it doesn't make sense, is when things are not consistent.
Some people like to work with a lot of layers, and I'm not that kind of person.
Why? Is it cumbersome to have too many layers?
I think it's a lot on your plate to have a lot of layers. I think you have to be very aware of what's on what layer and not mess it up. For instance, I might be drawing on my sketch layer the whole time and I don't realize it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the fewer layers you have, the less likely that's going to happen.
That's it for me. But some people like to keep a lot of layers just because they're scared of messing up, which is valid as well. I've done things where I've gotten rid of layers and realized I needed them actually because I messed up later.
It looks so much better already. Like, you haven't even done any smoothing or blending or anything, and already you're starting to get a feeling of depth and dimension in that corner. It's really satisfying, isn't it?
I know, which is why I love adding shadows.
Just because it starts to pop. That's when the image starts to feel a lot more believable. Those, I think, would have just a slight little lick on the side. I think those would be that makes me think of that Vermeer painting, the boy with the red hat. The whole face is in shadow, just a little line of light. It's gorgeous.
I've got all my shadows blocked in, and now I really want to paint how I normally paint. But the problem is that this multiply layer, I can only use multiply things on it. For instance, if I select this color and I paint on it, well, it's going to be a multiply layer. This is not how I normally paint. So what I'm going to do is merge it with this layer, merge it all together. So I'll call it sketch shadow merged. They're all merged, and I'm just going to paint on this one layer from now on. One thing I like to do to look at my image differently is to go to image and then click image rotation and then click flip canvas horizontal. And it's like you're looking at your image through a mirror.
Oh, so then you really look at it with a fresh set of eyes.
Right.
It looks weird backwards, doesn't it?
It does. Does anything stick out to you, though? Anything I need to change?
The figure on the left-hand side doesn't have any shadow on it. It looks sort of flat.
I also think the color looks a little bit off from the rest of the image because everything else has this yellowish hue to it.
It seems a little too blue, doesn't it?
It does. Since this is all on one layer, I can't change the caterpillar without changing the rest of the picture, I guess. I could also paint over it. I can select this color with the eyedropper tool and then go into the color settings and make a yellowish green. Like that looks kind of yellowish. And just paint over it. That slight green already makes a difference.
Oh, it's really minor, but I can see how now it seems like that color fits in the scheme of things.
Right. Another thing you could do if you want to affect multiple things in an image is go into the wand tool. So that's W on the keyboard, or you can click and hold and select the magic wand tool and select one part. It'll select all
so
of
cool.
the color. Yes. But I want to select multiple things, right? So hold down the shift key and click all the other colors that you want selected.
Oh man, that's incredible.
And there we go.
It just knows where the end of the color is.
Right, but sometimes it makes some mistakes, like zoom in. That brown is a little too similar to that yellow, so it also selected that.
Oh.
And that means the wand tool is not that smart, so you have to help it a little bit.
Is it usually on smaller shapes that it gets confused, or is it a similar color?
Similar color. You can also go into the lasso tool, which is right here, or just L on the keyboard. And normally when you circle something, it will select that. But we want to deselect things, right? So we will hold down Alt and then select the parts that you don't want, like this. There we go, it's selected.
So cool.
Now that all of those are selected, I am going to go to Image Adjustments and Color Balance. And here I can sort of adjust the colors in the image. For instance, maybe I wanted more yellow. There, it's getting more yellow. Or more blue. It's getting more blue. And you can do a whole host of things.
That's so fun.
Right.
Sheesh, you could do this all day.
You could. Now to deselect everything, you just do Control D or Command D if you're on Macs. I think I've painted this enough that I can use my reference photos now. For instance, maybe I want to paint in a certain arm on a caterpillar or a certain detail right here in the sink where it's just a mess. Maybe I want to flesh out the flowers and things that are being washed in there. But as for blending colors and stuff, I don't do that till the very end.
Oh, right.
I usually use very chunky colors to describe all of the things in the image, which you do in oil painting too.
Right,
you do very general and then you start getting more detailed. So we're still in the general phase right now. Let's go into some of our sink photos. Okay, I think this is a pretty good reference image. And there's this perfect reference image right here. It's of a sink, it's of Ed washing the flowers in the sink. So I'm just going to go into the lasso tool or whatever selection tool you want to use, just circle that whole thing and copy it.
What's copy again for the keyboard?
Control C or Command C. And then in here, Control V or Command V. And then there it is.
Oh, perfect. So you can have it right there as you're working.
Right. And
Super
it's in
convenient.
A different layer too, so it doesn't affect what you're doing.
Are you going to put Ed's arms onto the caterpillar?
I think I will.
Can you see his face in that reference photo?
No, but I can go into a different reference photo and find a different face.
In fact, in Photoshop, you can just flip the face if it's facing the wrong way.
Right, but you have to be careful when it's flipped, that people don't catch you flipping.
Oh, okay.
Like, for instance, if there are words in the image,
that could be a problem.
Right.
How detailed do you get? Because depending on, say, how big you printed this could look either really detailed or not detailed at all.
In terms of detail, I just do it until I feel like it's right. For instance, when I zoom out and it looks really detailed, then I've succeeded. But if I zoom in and you start to see like my brush strokes and things that aren't so resolved, that's fine. That's the point where I stop. I don't go in too much. But again, that also depends on what kind of look you're going for. If you want to zoom in and see a lot, you could draw that way. There's nothing wrong with that. I used to draw that way a lot.
But it's almost like all this extra work for something that doesn't matter that much.
That's true, but you know what? The image that I'm describing that I went in and I put in a lot of details, it ended up being printed really huge. Like 20
so that actually did matter.
It did matter, right? And people could actually see every leaf I drew.
Geez. Don't you think the baby needs like a backpack thing? No, I mean like
a baby carrier that it's in?
I feel like...
Or is a caterpillar baby just stick itself on the mother's back and
I feel
that's
like
enough?
it can stick itself on the mother's back.
So it doesn't need a snuggly?
I don't think it does.
Okay. In some ways, while you're painting, you're constructing the narrative as you go along.
Right. I'm making things up as I go, really. It really has to do with just the way I work.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's interesting that it's not just a technical exercise for you. It's also spontaneous storytelling. You know what's funny about your illustration is that sometimes the caterpillars are following what humans do and other times they don't, because the diaper is a reference to a human baby. But then some of the caterpillars have arms and some of them don't. So you're following the rules sometimes of reality and other times you're not.
I follow them when I want to follow them.
Exactly. Are you an illustrator who prefers to make up their own narrative, or do you like it better when somebody gives you a story?
I prefer to make up my own narrative.
Why is that?
I feel like I have full control. And I'm a person who likes to work on their own things.
Do you feel like you get constricted by someone else's story?
Definitely. Yeah, but it's still something I do, and it's still something I'm able to enjoy. For instance, I did a whole series interviewing roommates about their relationships, and it's their stories. I'm just illustrating them. It was fun. It was fun because I had to weave my voice with their voices, and that was a difficult part of the project, but it was very fun.
But this is where it's 100% your story, your image.
People find more reassurance when they've planned beforehand.
Yeah.
And sometimes things that happen spontaneously are really, really great. Just you gotta give it a chance.
But I also think having this many reference photos and this much visual information gives you the flexibility to make up more things. Because if you didn't have such a large library of images, I don't know that you'd be so quick to make those changes.
I had a professor that once said, if you can cheat, just cheat.
Get away with it?
Yeah, if you can get away with it.
Not sure that's the best advice for school, but a little ways back, you had looked up on Google all those caterpillar images. Are you going to bring those into play the same way you're doing with these photos of Ed?
For sure, I am. And I have a caterpillar picked out. I'm going to do this one. And I think it will be very detailed once I put in all the markings. I'm going to flip this image because in my reference photo, the caterpillar is facing right. So I want to draw the caterpillar also facing right. I'm going to take out these windows and do this. So you can just look at them at the same time while you're drawing. I'm going to make a new layer because who knows if I mess up. And I'm going to start giving him markings.
How do you know what to draw first on the caterpillar?
Well, I've already drawn the shape. I think I need to edit the shape a little more. For instance, look, the bottom, the butt of the caterpillar is a lot thinner than the head. So I have to change that shape a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And after that, I start looking for big shapes in the caterpillar. It's really hard to see past the black spots of the caterpillar. So I'm going to start with those and see where it takes me. Here is an advantage to working with layers. If I had put this caterpillar on a different layer and I had drawn the background beneath it, all I could have done is just erased part of the caterpillar to give it that smaller butt. But since this is all on the same layer, I can't just edit one thing. I have to like make the butt thinner and then I have to repaint the background.
Sure. Which
honestly I'm okay with, but some people don't work that way.
That doesn't seem like that big of a pain. Especially when you can just click and get the same color again.
That's right.
I mean, that took 30 seconds? It's really not that bad. Maybe it's more the idea of having to go back and fix it. Gosh, that shape really changes. He looked more like a worm before.
Okay, let's actually open up the reference file and see if there was a good picture of Ed's face. This actually might be good. This one right here is perfect. You know what we could do?
What?
Photoshop this face on this.
That's perfect, though. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Right?
It's like not that hard to do. So using the lasso tool, you can just like draw out the shape of whatever. So, and then I'm going to delete that. Draw this out.
Oh my gosh. So you're making a photo montage reference. How did you rotate that?
You press V, which is just the move tool. You move things with it. V's. It will have these transformation controls. Sometimes they won't appear. That means you have to check this box, and then they will appear.
Where it says show transform.
Show transform controls.
Okay.
Right. You can make it bigger or smaller like this. But to make it bigger without warping it, you hold down Shift.
Okay.
And it will just make it bigger like that. Finish controlling it by hitting Enter.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can also hit this check mark right here.
Okay.
I want that neck, so I'm going to erase out the neck.
Oh my gosh.
You can also like change the color balance to like match
To match the caterpillar better.
Right.
That's perfect. Maybe you need a little more contrast. It's a little gray.
Yeah, it is gray. So I'm going to go into getting more advanced, I guess, levels. And you can increase the darkness or increase the lightness by doing that. So it'll be more contrasting.
Sure. Yeah, there at least you can sort of get a sense of the shadow better.
Right. You can just hit R, and that is rotation. We're looking at the rotation tool right now, and you can just rotate the image like this.
Oh, so it's the right angle to match your drawing.
Right. So let's go back.
Oh that's perfect.
It's like the dad of the family.
I feel like his head could still be bigger.
Okay.
Just exaggerate it a little more.
Like that.
Yeah. That seems to fit the proportion a little bit better. But I think it goes to show that it took you an extra minute to put the face on the caterpillar is so worth it. I mean, you can see it clear as day now.
It's hard to tell. I should have had a picture of Ed with light facing him. Mm-hmm. This one is a backlit one. Although I see the shape really well,
maybe there's another profile though where you can see
maybe
his
that's
face
it
better.
Actually.
Just use that one.
This one is perfect actually.
Oh, flip it.
Perfect. Oh
that's
my gosh.
it. That one's better.
Wait, oh my god, should I Photoshop this one in?
Yeah, do that one instead.
Okay. I'm gonna do the wand tool or whatever. I never want to go full black. You never want to use black pigment in oil paintings, do you? And
no, I never use black pigment.
Right.
I always tell my students to mix their own black.
Mix their own black. Because something about black is just, it's not a color anymore, I guess. It's so automatic, and there's something very computery about it, especially if you just put it right into a drawing. I mean, you could use black if you wanted to. It's just that in this purpose, like the painting, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to do the markings. I'm going to choose kind of a darkish brown yellow thing. I won't go with black.
I mean, I find that black just kills everything.
It does.
It's extremely dull. Are you looking at the reference photo really carefully or not?
Not too carefully. I mean, people will understand it's a caterpillar. I don't have to... It's got a head and arms.
Yeah, no, exactly. Will you stick with everything? Like the little yellow highlights and the orange dots and everything?
I'll put in the orange dots and stuff because I like them. They're
they're cute.
I want it believable enough that people can recognize their caterpillar markings.
Right.
But I don't want some like caterpillar expert to come up later and be like,
and bother you.
That dot is wrong. Some people consider this sort of painting kind of finished. Some people like that, yeah.
Well, do you consider it finished?
I mean, I could leave it. It depends on what I'm looking for. I'm going to keep painting and see if it needs any blending.
Well, I did notice that you really jumped around the whole page and worked a little here, a little there, a little there. I think what I usually do is I'll just leave it. I'll go work on the other areas. And then sometimes I come back and I'm like, it really doesn't need more work. And other times I'm like, oh no, it really does need more work. So I think I like to evaluate an area within the context of the other areas. Oh, you're right. When you zoom out, it really does look like it could be finished.
Yeah.
And there actually is like a blue highlight on his body. Do you see it?
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, I can add that in.
Yeah, I think that would be nice as a complementary color against the orange. So in the end, this caterpillar needed 3 photos. Right. One for the face, one for the body, one for the arms. And I think that's also more effective rather than using one photo to articulate something. Pulling references from multiple photos can work.
You said bluish light?
I think it's like a very light sky blue highlight. I would make it more blue because in the context of the brown, you need it to be a little bit more saturated.
It's kind of funny because this looks blue, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the actual color, if you look at it, is like a gray-green. And sometimes you have to think about the relations of the color.
This
green for the caterpillar, it's really yellow. So a gray green like this will actually look blue against it.
Sure.
This is why I didn't just like go up and choose a blue like right there. That would have been a little bit too jarring of a blue.
Oh, yeah, I can see.
It doesn't match up, but when you zoom up, this blue actually works, even though it's a gray-green. Against this yellow, it looks blue. If you're confident with your color theory, I guess you could just choose it right from the color picker. A lot of people do that.
Right.
But what other people do, and what I do sometimes, is just pick a yellow and then color it in and then select it and then go into image adjustments, color balance, and then change it to be a little bit bluer.
So then you really get to test out the color.
Right. That looks kind of blue, right?
Yeah.
I like put the blue all the way up. If I deselect it, let's select it again. With the eyedropper tool, let's look at what color we came up with. Look, it was like a gray yellow.
Sure.
Right? You can use that to sort of cheat, to help yourself.
Right.
Remember, if you can cheat. The arm looks really fake compared to everything else. Honestly, I think it's because I tried to blend it too much. There's just a round cylinder of arm there, and I know the arm does not do that. So I'm going to actually look at the reference picture again. Kind of wanted this sort of thing happening, this shadow.
So you go back and forth a lot between flipping it horizontally.
Right, when it is convenient. I'm going to go back with like 80% opacity brush because I wanted opaque, but not too opaque. And I'm looking at the shadow. It kind of does this cool thing. I'm going to still try to blend it a little bit because I like that gradient it has at the crease.
What about the skin folds? Is that too detailed?
That might be a little bit too detailed. Look, we're already pixelated. What if I want the orange glow to be even brighter? I'm going to right click when it lets me. Take the hardness to 0.
Okay.
Get a really bright orange yellow. I guess do that. Wait, but not yet.
Oh, that's like beautiful haze. So wait, that's a very, very blendy brush?
Right. It's a brush.
You made the hardness as light as possible?
I made the hardness 0, so it has a soft edge. And look, the opacity of this brush is at 38%.
Okay, so it's very low opacity.
See, if I keep layering it, it would show up as the original color.
Right,
the opacity is, so little. Let's go into the layers and let's play with it a little bit. Like, what would it look like if I did color dodge?
It's like nuclear kryptonite.
Right, but you can also adjust the opacity.
Sure.
To look something like that. But I want the oven to look more warm than that, so let's not do color dodge. Let's do overlay.
Ooh, I like that.
Overlay is something I use all the time. But here's the thing. Here's what's tricky about it. You don't want to let people know that it's there.
Why? Does it look too obvious?
Sometimes it looks too obvious. For instance, if I did this, well, it's so obvious that I went in with like a soft edge brush and I didn't paint that in. I can just lower the opacity a little bit and the effect is still there, but then it's a little bit harder to pinpoint what I've done. And what I like to do even more is just do this right now and keep painting. Let's try another trick. I'm going to make it, the dark's really dark and the light's really light.
So you're just putting an effect on the whole image.
Right.
And this is a final tweak.
Which one do you like better?
I think I like the sunlight better. Just makes the colors a little crisper.
Another thing we can do is image adjustments, color balance, and again, shift the hue of whatever color, like that became more blue, really yellow.
Yeah. seems like you're pretty much done with the piece now. How do you know that?
Honestly, you just feel like you're done. And right now I feel like if I toggle any more, it will just become not just a painting, but just a Photoshop experiment at that point. At some point, the painting is done. And if you're happy with it, you're happy with it. You can have other people look at it as well to see if you think it's done.
Sometimes I get to a point where I feel like I'm doing more harm than good to the piece. And so that's when I usually stop. Or sometimes it's like, oh, I can't stand looking at this thing anymore, which I have to confess I have used in the past. But I think it's been a really great experience for me to watch this, because I guess what I was doing the whole time you were working was doing a compare and contrast against traditional painting. So to say, okay, this is what's different in digital, this is what's different in traditional, but here are places where the two forms really overlap fundamentally. So I was surprised at how much was so similar, because I don't think about digital painting as being similar to traditional painting. I think of it as a completely separate beast. But now I'm realizing that they actually have much more in common than I thought, which is sort of cool.
It's really fun to see the connections between different ways you work.
Yeah.
And digital can definitely be something you keep in your arsenal. It is a very useful tool, and you can choose whether you want to focus on that or not. I personally do not focus on it that much, yet I know it anyways, because it's just so useful.
I mean, how long do you think it takes to really build confidence and expertise in digital painting? Do you think it's something you could pick up pretty fast, or does it take several years to hone? Or
I think you can pick it up pretty fast, and you can always improve from there, depending on what you're aiming for. I think my journey in terms of digital art, I started off thinking I would do digital paintings, very refined, sort of like game development paintings you see nowadays. But then the more I've worked with it, the more I've discovered different ways I can draw. For instance, now my work is very graphic. It's just the way I like to work digitally. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can do whatever you want. I always try to make a digital sketch.
Why is there a reference photo of me holding sriracha sauce?
Oh, that was interesting. You were just candid, so I just took a picture of it. I was like, that could be useful.
What, in the future for blackmail purposes? You cooking some more dirt?